welcome to Serve Celebration Weekend. I hope you're excited to be here. I'm thankful. I'm thankful for those, many of the faces that you just seen on the screen, and many more who weren't in the video, who have been serving faithfully here at New Hope over the last year and really many years. And so we're excited this weekend just to have an opportunity to say thank you for your investment, your involvement. This week, it was funny, on Tuesday morning, we walk in and I had an email in my inbox, and it said this week is National Volunteer Week. And this month is National Volunteer Month. And we had no idea. We backed into God's blessing. We moved this around a couple different times, and God put it right here, which happened to be National Volunteer Weekend. So we're thankful to get to celebrate with you what God has been doing. And we recognize, as Pastor Robbie said, this last year has definitely had its fair share of challenges, but we've seen God work in the midst of all of it. We've seen Him expand our reach of our media team. We've seen Him expand the impact of our ministries through the soccer ministry, Disciple 500, our growth groups. We've seen Him strengthen our giving. We've seen Him give us a pinpoint vision through our BHAGs. So on behalf of your pastors, your ministry leaders, thank you. Thank you so much to all those who have been serving, whether that's in VBS. We've seen pictures of VBS. We've seen it of the soccer clinic, of Upward Soccer, our weekend serve teams, or one of the many teams that we have here at New Hope. Thank you so much. As many in the world was really drawing away, you were pressing in and pouring out in ways that God is going to be blessing our ministries for the years to come because of your investment. So I hope after the service you'll grab your ice cream from the ice cream truck, and you'll be joining us tomorrow at 2 o'clock for our giveaways, just as a small token of our huge just thankfulness that we have for you guys. But as a pastor, as a dreamer, as we have Serve Celebration Weekend, I can't just look back and not also be looking forward. We see some big things that God has done in the last year and years as we celebrated 20 years this last October. God has done some big things, but we're looking forward to seeing some big things that God has for us in the next 7 to 10 years. Over our last series, starting over, we looked at the book of Nehemiah, and a big thing that God did, that as He was teaching us through that book, I think sometimes we just took for granted that they built a 1.5 mile long wall that was 12 feet high, 15 feet wide in 52 days. That is a big task that sometimes I just think it's just a part of the story. We just took it for granted. No, that was a massive thing that God did through a group of people that worked together, and they didn't do it with power tools. They didn't do it with fancy equipment. They had to do it battle ready because they had a lot of opposition in front of them. And as with the Israelites, God has placed some pretty big goals ahead of us. Some goals, if I'm being honest, they seem almost more challenging than a 1.5 mile long wall that was built over 52 days. Things like establishing a thriving counseling center, 500 kids involved in weekly sports ministry, 50 churches planted in the Northeast, many children fostered and adopted, 1,000 people on the journey, caring for all through CareNet, 5 vibrant missions partnerships throughout the world, New Hope being a powerhouse of prayer, 60,000 people being discipled, and that New Hope is a joy to be a part of. Those are our BHAGs, our big, hairy, audacious goals that we believe that God has given us. This group of people, New Hope Community Church, to be reaching for these over the next 7 to 10 years. And I don't know if you're with me, maybe as I read those, you're thinking, have you guys lost your mind? Do you really think that you can plant 50 churches in the next 7 to 10 years? How audacious of you. You're right, they are audacious. Do you really think that you can disciple 60,000 people over the next 7 to 10 years? Well, let me tell you this. We for sure cannot on our own strength. We for sure cannot if it is up to us. But as the Israelites couldn't build a wall in 52 days by themselves, without the Lord's help in our lives, we will not be able to do these things if we're not doing it with His help and with each other's help. So that's what I want us to look at today, is as we look again at the book of Nehemiah, how God has some big things. So we're going to be talking about doing big things together today. Doing big things together. If we're going to do any of these BHAGs, if we're going to have an imprint and an impact on our region, it's going to have to be together. So let's open up again to the book of Nehemiah and look at some of the characteristics of a people who were able to do big things together. The first thing that we see in the book of Nehemiah is that in order to do big things together, the people will be committed. To do big things together, God's people will be committed. Anytime we talk about commitment in our culture, everyone kind of tightens up nowadays. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you signing me up for? You know, we've cut the cord. I don't want a cable contract anymore. I want to keep my options open in case something better happens this weekend. I'm going to bounce from relationship to relationship because this idea of marriage, that is so archaic. Commitment for life? No, commitment is something that scares us. And why is that? It's because I think of that phrase, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. We know that commitment is going to mean persevering through different challenges. It's going to mean being humble. It's going to be meaning compromise. It's going to take work. Commitment is hard because life is hard. That's some of what we've been talking about in our current series, Peace in the Storm. It's that life is going to have storms. And if we are committed to something, we're going to do one of two things. We're either going to fight through that thing with God's help, or we're going to run from it. And in many ways, that's what we see our culture doing so often. But we see here with the Israelites in the book of Nehemiah, and we'll look at chapter 4 if you want to go ahead and start turning there, is that they had many storms, many obstacles in their path as they sought to rebuild this wall. But with the Lord's help, we've seen them persevere. So look with me at verses 1 through 3, and then we're going to bounce through a couple verses as we get to verse 11 there in chapter 4. And we're going to see how the Israelites were committed despite opposition. It says, "Now it came about when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became furious and was very angry and mocked the Jews. He spoke in the presence of his brothers and the wealthy men of Samaria and said, 'What are these feeble Jews doing? Are they going to restore it for themselves? Can they offer sacrifices? Can they finish in a day? Can they revive the stones from the dusty rubble, even the burned ones?' Now Tobiah the Ammonite was near him and said, 'Even what they are building, if a fox should jump on it, it would break their stone wall down.'" Then go down to verse 6 with me. "So we built the wall, and the whole wall was joined together to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. Now when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the repair of the wall of Jerusalem went on, and that the breaches began to be closed, they were very angry. All of them conspired together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to cause a disturbance in it." Then jump down to verse 10. "Thus in Judah it was said, 'The strength of the burden bearers is failing, yet there is much rubbish, and we ourselves are unable to rebuild the wall. Our enemies said, they will not know or see until we come among them, kill them, and put a stop to their work.'" Here we see that the Israelites had to be committed despite much opposition. They had plenty of reasons to potentially run from this commitment that they had made to the Lord and to Nehemiah. It says their enemies were furious with them. They were angry. They spoke ill of them to others. They ridiculed their work. I love that verse. It says, even if a fox would jump on it, the wall would fall down. I hope no one, that sounds like someone talking about some of the things I build. If a fox would jump on it, it would fall. They ridiculed their work. They threatened to hurt them and they sought to kill them. Yet the Israelites remained committed. As we seek to serve the Lord and to do big things for Him, we are going to meet opposition and challenges. It could come from friends. It could come from family. It could be work. It could be our culture. It might be an unbelieving spouse that says, would you just do anything else than keep going to church and doing that church stuff, that God stuff? Can you just do anything else? It might be from a pandemic that's put just a seed of fear in your life that's caused you to say, I'm just going to go, I'm going to sit, but as soon as it's over, I'm going to get out. I'm not going to get involved in the work that God is doing. If you are seeking to do something big for the Lord, you had better expect opposition from the enemy. He definitely doesn't want you growing. He definitely doesn't want you involved. He definitely doesn't want you serving the Lord. And he most definitely doesn't want you telling anybody about Jesus. So you can expect that he is going to do anything and everything he can to persuade you and discourage you from doing them. But we see the Israelites, that in the Israelites, not only were they committed despite opposition, but they were also committed despite the work. Have you ever signed up for something that you didn't really know what you were signing up for? Hopefully that's not been your case here at New Hope. But it might have been helping a family member with a project or telling a friend, hey, I'll babysit your kid so you can go out on a date night. It might be saying, yeah, I'll come help you move, and then you're the only one there without a truck, and you're wondering, how in the world are we going to do this? There's been times in our lives where we've signed up and we've said, because we want to be people that say yes, right? We want to be servants, and then as soon as we get there, we say, I wish I would have said no. I wish I wouldn't have signed up for this. I can think of a time I was 21. I was actually still in college, and I was coming in town to spend some time with my family because I wasn't in our hometown during college. And being away from my nephews and nieces, I wanted to spend some extra time with them. So I told my sister and my brother, I said, I'll watch my nephew and my 2 nieces by myself. You guys go out, do whatever you want. I want to spend some quality time with them. My nephew was 4, my 2 nieces were 2 at the time. And let me say, yeah, right, you know. I did not know what I was signing up for. We did very well just to survive that day. My nephew, God bless him, was being 4. I was like, he's old enough, he can fend for himself. Find yourself something to eat, you know where the food is. He was playing his Wii at the time. I was trying to feed one of my nieces, and I didn't know what I was doing. I think I put her that cereal they have now. I put the cereal in her bottle, not knowing any different. The other one, but the great thing is it took her like 30 minutes to eat her cereal so I could do some other things. She was working real hard to eat so I could change diapers and get the rest of the house in order. I told you, it was a mess. I had no idea what I had signed up for. And so I think of the people of Israel when Nehemiah said, hey, let's rebuild the wall. They were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's build this wall. Let's get Jerusalem back to where it was. But once they started doing the work, I'm sure they thought, what did we just sign up for? What in the world is going on? We have people who are opposing us. They're threatening to kill us. And this work is hard. Have you ever seen a picture of Israel? It's not upstate New York in late April. It's not sunny and 65, partly cloudy. No, it's desert, it's dirt, it's rocks, it's rubble. And they had hard work that they were doing. And we find out that not only was the work hard, but they only had one arm to do it. They literally had to work with almost one arm tied behind them. Look with me at verses 17 through 21. It says, those who were rebuilding the wall and those who carried burdens took their load, with one hand doing the work and the other holding a weapon. As for the builders, each wore his sword girded at his side as he built, while the trumpeter stood near me. And I said to the nobles and the officials and the rest of the people, the work is great and extensive, and we are separated on the wall, far from one another. At whatever place you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally on us there, as God will fight for us. So we carried on the work, with half of them holding spears at dawn until the stars appeared. So not only did they have opposition on every side, but they only had one arm that they could use. And it said that at the end, it said that they had to work from dawn until the stars appeared. If I was one of them, I would have been praying, Lord, no clouds tonight. I need to see the stars right away. This work is hard. Building a wall is tough work. So not only did we see them committed to the Lord despite opposition and despite hard work, but we see in verse 19 that they were committed despite the need for more help. Look again at verse 19. It says, and I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, the work is great and extensive, and we are separated on the wall, far from one another. We see here that the work was expansive. They were spread out, and as a result, they were vulnerable. So vulnerable that they had half of their workforce set up as a defense. They didn't just need more help. It sounds like they needed an army. And we've all been in a place where we could have used a few more good hands, right? Maybe you know the phrase, many hands make light work. Well, the absence of hands makes work feel even harder and can produce what? Discouragement. What we find in Nehemiah is that despite not having all the help that they needed, despite the work being hard, and despite opposition, they remained a committed people. And what's important for us to see is that when you are committed to something, or should I say someone, great, that opposition always seems much lesser. Look at verses 14 and 15 of chapter 4 with me. And we're going to see here three things that they were committed to in spite of the challenges. Verses 14 and 15. It says, "When I saw their fear, I rose and spoke to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people. Do not fear. Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses." When our enemies heard that it was known to us that God had frustrated their plan, then all of us returned to the wall, each one to his work. Here we see that they were committed to the Lord. When opposition came, it hit the people for a moment. You see that it says that the fear was on their face. They got discouraged. Nehemiah seen this in them. But what does Nehemiah do? He says, remember the Lord. Remember the great and awesome Lord that you're serving. Remember who he is and how awesome and great he is. As we face challenges, as we see opposition in front of us that can seem daunting, we can get discouraged. But what we are committed to and who is really committed to us, right? It's not just that we're committed to him and he's kind of doing this. No, he's even more committed to us than we are to him. And he is great and awesome and worthy of our full commitment. I love, Pastor Robbie mentioned this in our series over the last couple weeks, John 16:13. I love this part of the verse that says, "Take heart, I have overcome the world." We are committed to one who has overcome the world. So who we are committed to is much greater than that which opposes us. But not only are we committed to the Lord, but it also says in this verse that we need to be committed to one another. If we're going to do big things, we need to be committed to one another. In verse 14, Nehemiah calls them to remember the Lord, but also to remember who they're fighting for, who they're building for. It says their brothers, their sons, their daughters, their wives, and their houses. See, it wasn't just about them. It wasn't just about their family. No, it was about a much bigger work that God was doing through the people. And this being the people of God, the Israelites. To do big things for the Lord will require our commitment to one another as the people of God. In our text that we looked at, it was the people of Israel, but today that means the local church. This is God's outworking of the people of God. It is through his local church. If you want to do big things for the Lord, you will be committed to the local church. I'm not saying that you can't do some nice things by yourself. I'm not saying that you can't do anything by yourself. But if you're going to do big things for the Lord, it's going to be connected to the local church. The local church is Christ's outworking in a broken world. So being committed to the Lord is being committed to one another through the local church. So we see not only are they committed to the Lord and to one another, we also see in verses 15 that they were committed to the work. Look at verse 15 again. It says, "And when our enemies heard that it was known to us and that God had frustrated their plans, then all of us returned to the wall, each one to his work." We said a moment ago that no doubt there was the opposition had rattled them. You know this word, they were shook. They had fear in their face. And as once Nehemiah reminded them, hey, remember the Lord, remember who you're fighting for, what happened next? They got back to work. They said, oh, God is with me, and I'm fighting for a work that is much bigger than myself. It's time to get back to work. They returned to the wall. The Israelites remembered that they had a job to do. That was the whole purpose that God had sent Nehemiah. It was to rebuild this wall. And in the same way, if you are a partner of New Hope, God has brought you here together with us to do a job, to reach a region for Christ. Maybe you've served for a long time, or maybe even briefly, but maybe you got burnt by it. Maybe the fear of serving again is written all over your face. Maybe you don't want to get hurt again. Maybe you don't want to get burnt out again. Maybe the opposition was just too much that you said, I've got to step away for a moment. But God wants us to remember him, remember who he is, remember what he's done, and get back to work. Doesn't the opposition look so much smaller when we keep our eyes on the Lord? I mentioned it earlier that what we are committed to must be bigger than what opposes us. But for some of us, we maybe have never even made that commitment to the Lord. Maybe today that first step for some of us is to make that commitment to Christ. Maybe you need to ask him to save you from your sins. Maybe you need to give your life to the Lord and commit yourself to him and serving him for the rest of your life. That's the first step. We'll get to the big things later, but the biggest thing you can do today, if you've never done it before, is to start a relationship with Jesus Christ. Or maybe you've already you started that relationship with the Lord, but you've never taken that step of committing to the people of God, to a local church. Your step may not be so much salvation, but maybe it's partnership. You might be needing to say today that I want to join in on this work. Or if you're visiting, maybe wherever you're from, you need to be making a step towards a church that is near you, and you need to make that commitment today and tell to the Lord and to us, hey, I've got your back. I want to join a local body of believers called New Hope where we're going to worship and grow and serve together. But then there's many of us who are saved. You're a partner here at New Hope, and God is calling us back to the wall. Maybe we've wandered from the wall. We mentioned this pandemic that we've been going through. For many of us, before all of this, we were involved, we were plugged in, we were working hard. But as we were drawn away, and for good reason for many of us, as we were drawn away, that step of getting back involved has been a really hard one. We've been a little bit hesitant. We're thinking, but it's kind of easier to just sit here and to come. But God is calling you back to the work. God is calling you to jump back into the ministries that you were so faithfully serving in before. Or maybe for some of us, maybe you're new with us. Maybe you've just joined us over the last couple of weeks or even year, and it's time for you to get to the work now. Maybe it's your turn to step in and to join in and jump in on the big things that God is going to be doing in the life of our church over the next 7 to 10 years. So we've seen a people that were committed. We've seen a people that were committed despite opposition and to the Lord. But what we also see in our text is that if we're going to do big things for the Lord, we will work cooperatively. We will work cooperatively. Flip back in your Bible to chapter 3. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but just a couple verses so we kind of see what's going on in this chapter. It says at verse 1, when Eliashib, the high priest, arose with his brothers, the priests, and built the sheep gate, they consecrated it and hung its doors. They consecrated the wall to the tower of the 100 and the tower of Hananel. Next to him, the men of Jericho built, and next to them, Zaccur, the son of Imri, built. Now the sons of Hanasina built the fish gate and laid its beam and hung its doors with the bolts and bars. And next to them was a whole lot of other people that I'm not going to read them all. I let Pastor Robbie do that a couple weeks ago. He butchered those names for us. No. I don't need to read them all, but what we see here is a breakdown of the different people doing the different jobs that they were called to do, one by one, beside each other. And it shows us that much more was needed than just Nehemiah. If we look back at verses 18 there, we see here how Nehemiah recognizes the hand of God on his leadership, but then we also see a response of the people when they say, let us arise and build. They recognize that there's no way that Nehemiah can do this on his own. He's told us that God wants us to rebuild this wall, but he can't do it, so let's arise. Let's build. Let's do this together. They each had a role to play, and they fulfilled it. So not only did they work together, but they each identified the role that they were supposed to play. If we flick back again to chapter 4, we can identify multiple different roles in this story. We see in verse 13 that some were guarding the walls with swords and spears and bows. In verse 17, we see some who were rebuilding the wall. In verse 20, we see some who were trumpeters. They would sound the alarm if there was an attack. In verse 22, we see night watchmen watching over the camp by night. There was a reason that each person was in place. What if just one of these people said, I'm not going to show up today? What if the warriors didn't stand there with their spears and there was an attack? What if the builders said, we're going to take a day off? Well, the wall's definitely not getting built in that case. What if the trumpeters decided to put their trumpet down? What if the night watchmen fell asleep? The whole camp would be vulnerable if just one role didn't fulfill their job. Each of them had an important role to play. They each had an important role to play. Every part of the picture was important. It's been really cool to see the different teams at New Hope really playing their part over the last year as we've sought to love one another in our community. We can mention a lot of different ministries, but I want to really just focus on our weekend worship teams for just a second. Since New Hope was started, some 20 years ago, it's really been our worship services that have been the metaphorical front door for people to be introduced to New Hope. In some ways, that's kind of adjusting. In some ways, through our soccer ministry, growth groups, Celebrate Recovery is one of those great front doors for some people. Soon, our counseling ministry, amen. God is about to bring many people to us through a counseling ministry. But even still, these weekend worship services have really been that first impact, that first relationship builder with many people to our church. So let's visualize for just a second what that might look like for a guest when they come. Say maybe even tonight, you're a guest with us. You pulled in, you parked your car, you walked up to the doors, maybe a little nervous. You saw some cool balloons. You're like, that's kind of nice. A couple guys out there greeting you, saying, hey, welcome, wanting to shake your hand, but respecting and saying, we don't know where you're at. We're not going to shake your hand yet. But welcome to New Hope. And you're thinking, that's kind of nice. It's nice to be greeted. It's nice to have the doors open for me. Then you walk in the doors, you go through the foyer, and you're beeline, and you're thinking, I just got to get to my seat. Hopefully no one's going to talk to me. I just want to get to my seat. This is uncomfortable. But you get to the doors, and you're greeted by an usher, and they say, welcome again. They help you find a seat. And as they're seating you, hopefully they ask you, hey, are you new here? I've never noticed you before. And they're able to get to know you a little bit, and they said, hey, make sure you stop by the Welcome Center on your way out. We got a gift for you. If you're a first-time visitor, we want to get a gift to you. Hopefully your second thought was, well, it's nice to be noticed. It's nice to be recognized as a guest. And it's nice that they offer me a bag, but let's be real, I'm probably not going to go get it, right? I'm new. I just want to get out on my way out. But then the worship band begins to play, and Pastor Matt and his team lead us in really a God-glorifying set. Hopefully you were encouraged by that. And your next thought is, the worship pastor looks a lot like the guy who's preaching the message tonight. But then your second thought was hopefully, wow, what an awesome time of worshiping the Lord together. And hopefully that prepared you for a message that touches your heart so much that after the service, we'll introduce you to our decision team. And it's a group of people that want to just love on you. They want to pray for you. They want to be able to sit there and talk with you about whatever God is doing in your life. And you think, man, I haven't had someone pray for me really even ever maybe. But they said that they're going to pray for me all week. Wow. Maybe I will stop by the Welcome Center and get a bag. And then as your way out, you stop by the Welcome Center, you're greeted again. Said, thanks for coming. We give you that nice bag. They get to know you for a moment, and they invite you back. And your last thought is, man, it seems like these people care for me. It seems like they love the Lord. It seems like they want to serve Him. They want to worship Him. Maybe I will return. Maybe I will come back to this place. You see how it all works together? You see how every part plays every position plays a part? It's like if we were going to write Nehemiah in our own terms, it would say, and Luke was working at the door, and beside him was Chuck, who was working at the worship room doors, and next to Chuck was Pastor Matt and his worship team, and next to him was Pastor Robbie as he shared the announcements, and next to Pastor Robbie was Pastor Adam, who shared the message. And next to Pastor Adam was Abby Ann, who was at the Welcome Center, who gave me a bag. Each person playing a role in the bigger picture that is our weekend worship services. But if just one of these roles isn't filled, the whole experience could be a different thing. Everyone has a part to play, and each part is important. It's what allows us to create a welcoming, a warm, a friendly, and hopefully God-focused environment to you who come each and every weekend, but also to our guests who are coming to visit with us. So in Nehemiah, we see a people committed to the work and work together, but we also see in Nehemiah that they said, hey, count on me. The people were counted. To do big things, God's people will be counted. We see a multitude of lists. If you remember back with us as we went through the book of Nehemiah, we see many lists in the book of Nehemiah. In chapter 3, we see a list of builders who were listed side by side. In chapter 7, we see a list of the first returners from exile. Later in chapter 10, we see a list of the first people who signed the covenant. They had established a covenant with the Lord, and we see all of the people who signed it all the way down to the people who had knowledge and understanding. Everyone was a part of this. The Israelites made sure that there was no doubt that Nehemiah knew that they were with him. He didn't have to question their commitment. He didn't have to question their cooperation because he said, hey, write me down. I want my name on this. We're writing names down. I want my name on the list. I want to be counted. I don't want my kids to wonder, was dad or mom a part of the work that was going on at the wall? No, they wrote it down. There was no doubt that they were committed and that they were counted. But again, this can be difficult. We see again this highlighted in our culture through an acronym called FOMO. Do you know what FOMO is? Has anybody ever heard this idea of FOMO? F-O-M-O. It means the fear of missing out. Between FOMO and YOLO, do you know YOLO? I'm giving y'all, keep up with me, y'all. Y'all like, what are the kids talking about? Actually, this is late. YOLO's like 3 years ago. YOLO is you only live once. These ideas of missing out or you only have one life to live. This idea of committing is hard because we want to make the most of this one life we have and we want it to be the best that it can be. I don't want to miss out on something. With social media, opportunities aplenty, and the ability to get from one place to the next relatively quickly, even across the country, if something cool is going on, I want to make sure that I'm a part of it, that a selfie was taken, and that it was posted on social media, because if it's not, it didn't really happen, right? People got to see that I didn't miss out. See, this idea of YOLO and FOMO constantly challenges, is this the best way that I can be using the very finite time that I have in this one life that I have to live? With full schedules every day, our time has really become our most valuable resource. So if there is something better or more exciting that I can be filling my life with, I want to be doing it. I don't want to miss out. I've only got one life to live. I want to know what exciting is going on. So as a result, when it comes to being committed or counted, that can be kind of scary. I don't know if I want to commit to Pastor Robbie asking me over for dinner on Friday, but what if Pastor Matt invites me, right? He's a cool guy. I want to hang out with Pastor Matt. Not that I don't love Pastor Robbie, but Pastor Matt can play the guitar. Or I don't know if I want to make a commitment to serve at VBS, because what if something else comes up this summer that I want to be a part of? What if there's a vacation opportunity that opens up, or a baseball game? See, these terms, YOLO and FOMO, scream at us that we have to be doing the most valuable thing that we can be doing at every moment of our life. If you value vacation, if you value sports, if you value your family, then you're going to move earth to make sure that you're involved in it. And if you value the Lord and serving Him, then you're also going to have to make it happen there. What we see from the Israelites in Nehemiah is that to them that there was nothing better than serving the Lord and rebuilding the wall. They didn't have to fear missing out on anything else because they were doing what they viewed as the best thing, serving the Lord and rebuilding His city. I'm afraid that I myself far too often compare the opportunities of the world against the opportunities to serve the Lord, and I see those things as better. I see those things as maybe more exciting or best. But what if, dream with me, what if we truly viewed and valued serving the Lord as the best thing we can do with our time? What if I feared missing out on God working more than I feared missing a day on the lake? What if I feared missing out on an opportunity to disciple someone through our Disciple 500 more than I did another round of golf or a night at the movies? I'm not saying that these things are bad, no. You could go golfing with your Disciple 500 person. I'm not saying these things are bad, but I'm saying if we are more worried about missing out on the things of the world than we are the work of the Lord, then our priorities might be out of place. If serving the Lord is the greatest thing that we can do, then we have nothing to fear that we could be missing out when we're serving the Lord. He's the greatest. Serving Him is the greatest. Everything else would cause me to miss out. I don't want to be involved in the other things if it's going to cause me to miss out on this greatest thing that is serving the Lord who loved me and saved me. When Christ is our highest and we are serving Him, we have nothing to fear. The Israelites were committed, and they made it known because they didn't want to be anywhere else. They said to Nehemiah, you can count on me. What if today you said to the Lord and to New Hope, you can count on me? What amazing things might the Lord do through you and us as we partner together to do big things? What if by your saying, you can count on me, you and your family head out in the years to come to a church plant and start a plant in the Northeast, a church in the Northeast, as we seek to plant 50 churches in the next 10 years? What if by your saying, you can count on me, a foster child and family are given a hot meal, a bag of supplies, a new outfit, as we tell them, hey, we got your back, as we seek to grow our foster and adoption ministry here in New Hope? What if by holding the door or greeting someone or helping them find a seat or loving on our kids in kids' church, you play a small part in a lasting impact in a community? For these things to happen, it can't be, well, I hope someone shows up. It has to be, you can count on me, and here's my name to prove it. Here's my name. The wall might not have got finished if it was just a come and go job. No, Nehemiah had a list. They listed them in chapter 3 for us to look back on. It was documented. For us to reach a region for Christ and to do big things together, the people of God will be counted. And really, church, let me commend you in a couple ways. You're doing it in many ways. As we've waded these waters over the last year, you've told us multiple times, hey, you can count on me. We've seen it in our giving. There has been, when we were pivoting, we were wondering, okay, what's about to happen? But church, you showed up and said, hey, don't worry, pastors, you can count on me. And our giving has been strong. And really, church, we see that needing to grow because as we do these big things, it's only going to be getting stronger. But you've proven to us, hey, you can count on me. We've got your back. And again, let me brag on our weekend teams and our leaders. After getting to work with them firsthand and really seeing how God has used them, I can tell you that those teams and those leaders are, you can count on me type of people. All of our teams have had to adjust what we do, how we do it, when we do it. And many of our volunteers and our team leaders have said, hey, no matter what, you can count on me, even if that means every weekend. Even if it means I have to serve 3 weeks in a row, you can count on me. So you may be wondering, we've talked about needing to kind of re-strengthen our weekend teams. You may have been thinking, why do you need to do that? Because you haven't noticed. We've been going and going and going, and our people have been serving faithfully so much. They said, Adam, we've got it. You can count on me. Thank you. Thank you. It is so good to know as a group of pastors, as we're planning the weekend, as we're preparing all that God is going to do in our weekend services, that we know our backs are covered and that we can count on those people who have written their names down. So thank you so much. So if Jesus is your Savior and this church is your home church, have you been counted? Have you said to the Lord and to your church family, you can count on me? On your seats, you should have received an orange piece of paper that says at the top, you can count on me. You'll see a couple of different lines there. One that says, I am currently serving on the blank team, or I am interested in serving on the blank team with some options underneath it. Our motto here at New Hope is to worship, grow, and serve. You see it on our website. Maybe you've got one of these blue bracelets. You wear it on your wrist. And if you're here for worship, hey, you've got the first one down. Worship. I'm here. Mark me down. Many of you, if not most of you, have said, hey, I want to grow. I'm going to join a growth group. I'm going to be a part of Disciple 500. I'm going to be a part of a group of people growing together. Awesome. But what about that last word? What about that word serve? Have you taken that step with us? Have you said, hey, yeah, I want to get in the game. I want to serve somewhere at New Hope. Now if you're already serving in an area, praise God. We're not asking you to sign up for 5 areas. We're asking you to say, hey, where is that one place? Where's just that one place that God could use me in the life of New Hope? Because we believe that is an important part to worship, grow, and serve together. So we want to help everyone. We want to invite everyone. You want to grow? Get involved in serving. You want to worship the Lord? Be involved in His ministries, and you're going to be worshiping Him as you see Him do amazing things in and through your lives. So again, we've seen a people here in Nehemiah that did some awesome things. They were committed. They worked cooperatively. They were counted. But they were also celebrated. As God does big things, His people will celebrate. And this is why we're here today. This is why we're having a Serve Celebration Weekend. We want to celebrate all that God has done in the last year, the people He has used, but we also want to look forward. But we want to celebrate. And we see 3 things that they celebrate in the book of Nehemiah. The first thing we see that they celebrate is the preaching of the book. We've been talking a lot about the book, right? The people celebrated the preaching of the book. Look over with me at chapter 8, verse 12. Chapter 8, verse 12. We've been asking over the last really couple months, Pastor Robbie, did you bring the book? What we say when we are asking that question is we're recognizing and acknowledging something, that this book matters. This book can change your life, and when it is preached, it impacts our lives. And we see that in chapter 8, verse 12. It says, all the people went away to eat and drink, to send portions, and to celebrate a great festival. Well, why is that? Because they understood the words which had been made known to them. See what the people did when the word was preached and they understood it? They had a party. They celebrated. They had a festival because the book was brought and they understood it. If God's going to do big things through us at New Hope, we will not neglect the celebrating of His word being preached. But secondly, we see in those verses that not only did they celebrate the book, but they celebrate what God has done. The people will celebrate what God has done. If you flip over to chapter 12, verse 27, we see the dedication of the wall. And a couple things. They sought out the Levites so that they could celebrate the dedication with gladness and songs and thanksgiving. They recognized that the great work that God had done through them in rebuilding the wall, and they wanted to celebrate that work at the dedication. So when God works, His people are going to celebrate that work. Can you imagine if you were one of those Israelites who was in Jerusalem? These people, some of the first group from Babylon, come back from exile, and they see the wall, and they're like, oh, wow. This thing was torn down when we left, and now it is rebuilt. Tell me, what was it like to build it? Can you imagine if you were one of the people who said, I didn't really get involved? What do you mean you didn't get involved? You were here, and you weren't a part of this great work that God did in rebuilding the wall. Can you imagine what that would feel like? Could you imagine what it would feel like for someone in 5 and 10 years where we have a new person come and they say, you were at New Hope 5 years ago, 10 years ago? What was it like? You know, we often think about that when Pastor Robbie talks about planting the church. What was it like to have been there when the church was planted? In 10 years, people are going to say that about us. And they're going to tell you, what was it like? Oh, you want to say, this is what it was like. You didn't just observe it. No, you were involved. You were a part of it. And you've seen God work in amazing ways. That leads us to the third thing that we see that was celebrated. The book was celebrated. The work was celebrated. But the people that God used were also celebrated. When the people are counted and written down, there is a level of celebration that will happen because we get to look back and see who God used to do something great. I've got with me a couple of our old Hope brochures. Maybe you were around for some of these. I've got one from 2005 and 2015. And if I were to flip through these, these are always great to look at. We look at these every year when we start making the new one because you really see how the styles have changed. You see how the people have changed, and you see how God has worked. And so what's great about them is that, a lot of the people, some of you are in these, and praise God for that, but some people aren't here anymore. Maybe they've moved away. Maybe they've fallen away. Maybe they've passed away. But what we like when we look at these brochures is we're not just looking at people. These books tell a story. We celebrate a story as we look through these. This is what God has done in New Hope. You want to celebrate where we are today? Come get this 2005 one and see where we were in 2005. You will celebrate what God has done. These tell a story. God has done great things, and we want to celebrate it, and we want to celebrate the people because this people is not here if these people were not here. We would not be here today if these people did not come before us. God has used each of the people in these books to do mighty works, and we want to celebrate them, but we also want to see them as a motivation to keep going. We want to keep going. Who are the people that are going to be sitting in these seats or in a church in Saratoga Springs or Plattsburgh because you said today, church family, you can count on me. What kid will grow up to love Jesus because you chose to invest in them at kids' church today and said, hey, Pastor Drew, you can count on me. This weekend, as we celebrate with pictures and ice cream and giveaways, all that God has done and who He is using, we want to look ahead and we want to invite you to join us. We want to invite you to be a part of the big things that God is going to be doing together in us at New Hope. So go ahead and look at that card with me again. As we flip through Nehemiah today, we've celebrated, but we've also been challenged. Have I been counted? Have I written it down? Have I committed to being a part of this big thing that God is doing at and through New Hope? If you have, if you've already made that commitment and you know the ministry team that you are serving on, go ahead. You can write that on that first line. I am currently serving in blank ministry. But if you're serving, or if you're sitting here today and you call New Hope your church family, but you haven't been counted yet, you haven't found that place yet that you're telling the church, hey, you can count on me in this area, I want to invite you today to make that known. I want to invite you to join us in this work that God is doing. Because, as we said, there's nothing better that you can be doing. You don't have to worry about, well, if I sign up for that, what am I going to miss? You're going to miss not being involved in the Lord's work if you don't sign up. We want to invite you to be a part of this great thing that God is doing because we know that He will work in your life through it. So we want to give you a moment to pray over that question, have I been counted? By allowing our worship team, they're going to play a song for us here in just a moment. And as they play, as they sing, I want to invite you to consider, Lord, what role do I have to play here at New Hope? Where do you have me to join along? If you're joining us online, you can go to the hub, sharingnewhope.org/hub, and we have a digital version if you want to join us in filling that out now. So I want to invite Pastor Matt and his team to lead, and then after, I'll come back up and close this out.